Why do car dealers refuse to drop their prices? This is a phenomenon we're going to see way beyond 2025 and 26, because even when you think you're getting a deal, you're really not. As a matter of fact, most dealers are charging 3 to 5% over sticker price, well over invoice price actually, and they're making just a cherry on the cake. When they're charging over sticker, they're making all kinds of money. And you go in there and you negotiate and you say, look, I want a discount. The car's listed at say $49,995, and all of a sudden you want to get some money off. They're going to tell you, well, we're losing money. We can't afford to give you any more discount. We're barely holding on to these. There's going to be somebody for sure waiting around the wings. And they give you all kinds of song and dance. But there's all kinds of extra tricks that these dealers have. And have you ever wondered, if all of these dealers were losing money on the sales of each one of their vehicles, how would they remain in business? Well, the fact is, they're in business because they're making money. And the OEMs are making money and the dealers are making even more. And I'm going to share with you some of the ways, in fact, that they're making money and how they're able to stay in business. But also on top of it, it's a little bit of an insult, the fact that half the time they won't even negotiate. And even if they do negotiate on the front end, they usually take it back somewhere else on things like gap insurance, extended warranty, and of course, ultimately, you're paying extra. So somewhere between invoice and MSRP is where you'd like to be. But realistically, they don't want to negotiate on that. They don't want to give you invoice. They just basically want to hold firm, saying that that's the last one of that color. That's the last truck that we have like that. Ooh, there's somebody else looking at it and they're coming this afternoon to look at it. So you might want to put a deposit on that. There's all kinds of games and song and dances how these dealers treat you. But at the end of the day, have you not found it peculiarly interesting how a lot of them are not really willing to negotiate all that far, especially on new cars? Used, it's a different game. I mean, really, it's all about Manheim values. It's all about used car values. The industry changes and shifts. Demands of certain types of vehicles change. And so used car market can change and it has its ebbs and flows. But whereas the new vehicles come to mind, a lot of these dealers tell you they're losing money, tell you that, yes, there's research and development in our electric vehicles, our hybrid technology. And yeah, that new 6.2 liter V8, that's hot. That's a new engine. It's gone through these new revisions. That's why the price increases. They've been building these trucks forever. 6.2 Chevys and Ram, Chevys and GMCs have been around forever. That engine's been around for just about ever. And even if just a stroke or a bore change, it's still really old technology. But yet, they keep creeping these prices up. It's not just wages. It's not just supply chain and the parts. But it's ultimately their attention and focus on the bottom line, the profits. They don't want to give that up to you. But now, ever since that they saw what they could pull away with you, selling you a car for well above sticker, they saw what they were getting away with back in 21 and 22, where it peaked in the fall of 2022, where they basically said, look, we don't have many on the lot. You're going to have to pay more, or you're going to have to wait 16, 18 months to get your new car. Those were the games they were playing. And on top of it, because of the chip shortages, they elected to just put the chips and ration them into the higher premium trucks and the loaded up vehicles. You think Ram and even Stellantis with a lot of the Jeeps, they were loading up their premium vehicles with the chips. Well, all their entry-level stuff sat at the factory missing some parts. That's why a lot of these volume cars just never sold. Nobody wanted them. And everybody wanted to go to the premium stuff with the government handouts and people were bored. They just wanted the latest technology. And guess what? The OEMs helped them out with that. They helped them buy a stepped up vehicle with big profit margins on a lot of their vehicles. So as a result, you overpaid. A lot of times well above sticker. Some of these dealers are going to go as far and try to knock down your negotiations and they won't negotiate at all, or they'll tell you there's no profit. And they'll even tell you, try to convince you that the only way they make money is hopefully a word of mouth, right? Have you ever heard that before? They're going to BS you and tell you, well, you're going to go tell two friends and they're going to tell two friends and so on and so on. And even if we can make $50 on a vehicle, hey, it's money in the bank. And they'll also tell you, well, we hope that you'll come back for service and then we can charge you for the oil changes. And they're just basically going to cut it like that. But realistically, they're not in the business of donations. It's not a non-charitable or a non-profit organization. These dealerships are there to make money. So the average dealer is going to make 3 to 5% above invoice, easily, all day, sometimes 7 to 10%. And a lot of these prices, of course, go right into the pockets of the dealers. Meantime, you just walked away. You thought you were clever and you tried to wheel and deal you. They gave you $100 off of that car. And meantime, they just collected 5% of $50,000 and they made, say, $2,500 on the sale of that vehicle. And other places these dealers are making money off of you. First of all, they don't want to negotiate. We've already talked about that. That's clear. And since they saw what they could get away with back in 2022, they're even less inclined to negotiate. They're less inclined to go below sticker. In actuality, if you go to a Toyota or Lexus dealer, you're probably paying above sticker easily all day. Now, while there's some incentives on the EVs, the bottom line is that's only because now the government the government kickbacks are pretty much wiped out and gone, and now they can't do anything but just move these vehicles close to invoice price. But they're still making money. But think of it this way. They have other ways to generate revenue. Of course, they're holding steady to their price, their MSRP. Plus, they're going to charge you on extended warranties. Plus, they're going to charge you on gap insurance because after you agree with the salesperson, he's going to kick you down to the finance office. Finance office is going to say, hey, we'll get you this great paint protection film. You want to make sure you protect that great paint. Yeah, the city likes to throw gravel on the road for wintertime. You want to make sure you protect that paint. Very expensive new truck. It is beautiful. You don't want that beautiful red, shiny, or blue paint getting damaged. So why don't we get you into a nice layer of paint protection film? Next thing you know, you've got that. Next thing you know, they're fast talking you saying, look, we also know that because you're taking out your car loan for 84, 96 months, we also know that there's a high probability in many cases you might be underwater for a couple of years. That's just a reality. That's just the norm these days. They'll tell you that's the norm. It's not the norm, but they'll tell you that's the norm. And as a result, they'll say, well, and in the inadvertent accident, somebody takes you out, bumps into your truck lightly and scrapes the bumper. And now you've got to go in and maybe get it repaired. But even worse, what if that car gets written off? Yeah. Well, you know what? We can sell you a gap insurance. And that covers you with the difference between the depreciated value and, of course, if you're talking about a repair depreciated value versus what you owe on the car and you want to write it off and you want to get the payout, you might be underwater. Well, that gap insurance is there to cover you in your negative equity situation where almost everybody finds themselves in now who takes out a 6 or 7 year car loan is immediately underwater. And if that vehicle, heaven forbid, is in a write-off or a collision of that severity, you're probably going to be honestly upside down. You're going to be paying the bank extra money for a car that was wrecked. So you're going to be behind the 8 ball. And so they're going to try to sell you on gap insurance. But guess what? Their gap insurance isn't the best solution. First of all, the best solution is having more money down, a shorter loan term, and ultimately that reduces the chance of being negative equity and the need for gap insurance in the first place. Second of all, there's third-party gap insurance, or just go to your insurance coverage protector anyway. Maybe you go to your own insurance company, and usually they give you a better, more competitive rate for gap insurance. Whatever it is, they're going to try to sell you on that. And extended warranties. Did you know they make a significant amount of profit? As a matter of fact, I know of a guy here locally at a local dealership here that sells Lexus vehicles. And he tells me that they're charging $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 for extended warranties. But did you realize immediately they put about $3,000 of that in their own pocket at the dealer level? Because they know that most of that is going to be washed over. A lot of those warranties are going to be excluded. A lot of them are going to be pushed off. And by that time, a lot of people have traded in their vehicles. Sometimes these extended warranties are transferable. Some of them aren't. And ultimately, they know a lot of times when it's time to come collecting, the consumer often doesn't. And sometimes the dealers just push back hard enough so that they don't even pay out of pocket. The dealers always know. They always put their low guy, hey, the newbie, we'll go fix that car. Even if it is an approved repair, I've seen it time and time again, where they'll put the rookie, the apprentice mechanic, the guy that's new on the shop floor, the guy that barely has a new set of tools, the guy that bought his tools from Canadian Tire. He's the guy that's fixing your warranty work. He's the guy that they're going to try to get in and out as quick as possible, as cheaply as possible. So also, some of that extended warranty work isn't always done with the most love and attention, but you're paying for it. And a lot of that money in the front end is going into the dealer's pockets. Now, other places naturally may not so much on the front end, but you realize, of course, the service is where they're going to make a lot of their money. They openly admit that, but we also know that. Service department's going to get you. Labor rates, we're talking $250 an hour, depends on what kind of shop and what kind of OEM you're going to. $250 an hour? What? The worst part is the mechanic himself doing the work is only getting maybe $30 an hour. What's wrong with that picture? The rest of it goes into the pockets of the dealer. Yeah, they've got to pay the concierge, pay the receptionist, put some free waters in the fridge up front. But let's be honest. How much of that is profits? A massive amount of that is profits. Not only that, we think about the parts. Parts are massively expensive. Have you ever tried to fix your own car and you say, hey, the starter just went on your car? So you price it out at the dealer. They'll give you a quote of, say, $385 for the starter for your new Ford truck. All right, $385. But if you ever took the time to look around at some of those independent shops, some of those smaller, I'll just throw like a Napa or one of these small little independents that are selling parts. Now, some of them sell equivalent, OEM equivalent. Some of them are junk, but some of them are just the same as good quality as the OEM. And that $385 starter at the dealer sometimes costs you $205 at these independent shops. And these dealers don't like that. But guess what? A lot of people won't go anywhere but the dealer. And especially if you're one of these people that, you're more or less hands-off and you rely on the dealer to troubleshoot it. Diagnostics, usually $250 to $300. Just to evaluate what your check engine light's about. They're going to charge you there. They're also going to charge you on the parts, labor, everything. Bada boom, bada bing. Let's be honest, right? So not only are they charging you that $385 for that starter, but they're charging you diagnostics fee of $250. They're charging you all that materials, gloves and lubricants and fittings and snaps. And they're going to charge you another $80 for miscellaneous part supplies. And they're going to charge you all these extras plus taxes, plus. Next thing you know, if you could have done that repair yourself, you could have done it for the part price at the independent shop or independent supplier for that $205 or whatever, or even at the dealer part for $385. But by the time most people take their car into the dealership, check it in, diagnostics and all the extras, you're in and out of the shop all of a sudden for $850. Parts, labor installed, and guess what? They even put a new set of wiper blades for you, eh? But that's how it works, and that's how these dealers get you. Parts, labor, shop rates, diagnostics, you name it, even accessories. All of a sudden, you realize that first winter was kind of rough. You know what? I need some mud guards. So you go into the dealer, you say, I want some OEM mud guards that have the dealer or the OEM brand name on there. Guess what? You're paying big. And those guys are making money hand over fist. They get their parts cheap at wholesalers, wherever their suppliers are coming from, and then they turn it around. They put, 300, 400, 500% markup on a lot of their parts. So you're paying, and they know that. They know that you're coming around and again and again. And they'll make you feel warm and fuzzy. Sometimes they'll even give you a tour of the dealer after you buy your car. Just so you feel part of home. You're part of the family. But that's how they get you, one way or the other. Also, OEMs offer those dealers holdbacks and extra rebates to the tune of maybe 1, 2, 3, 4% sometimes, just by saying, look, you're meeting targets, you're selling the volumes, these are hard to sell vehicles and you're making them sell, you're making them go away. Good on you. And so not only are they getting the 3 to 5, 6% on the top of every vehicle, they're also getting a lot of these rebates and holdbacks and kickbacks from the OEM, from the manufacturer. So they're making a lot of money. They might walk out looking rosy, making anywhere from 5 to 8%, maybe even as much as 10% on the top of the sale of some of these new vehicles. And that's at sticker price. That's if they sell it at sticker. But again, greed just gets the best, and the green-faced galoot there is going to try to take you for everything you're worth. But, have you not noticed that a lot of these OEMs and a lot of these dealers seem less willing to actually negotiate? They seem willing when they want you to come out of your car, put it in park, turn the car off and come inside to talk. That's when they're all open arms. But once you get in there, you test drive the car, they see you're wide-eyed and bushy-tailed. Now they know they got you hook, line, and sinker. Next thing you know, they're not giving you those deals you thought you were maybe going to get. They might say, well, yeah, actually, we could have done an extra $2,000 off, but that's the base trim with the little 4-cylinder in that full-size truck. How about this instead? This is probably more what you're looking for, right? You're hauling a boat, you're hauling a trailer, you're going to work. Yeah, you're going to need this instead. Next thing you know, instead of buying that $35,000 full-size truck, you're buying that $80,000 full-size truck, and they got you rooked in. And that's how they make their sales. Remember, the more expensive the vehicle, particularly in a specific lineup like trucks and large SUVs, the more features and options, which are already mostly wired in and moduled up to the yin-yang, most of those vehicles have huge margins, and they're going to try to sell you on the premium vehicles. So ultimately, the bottom line is they're barely likely to negotiate these days. I mean, the only major negotiations you're likely going to get, they'll sometimes tell you, well, I mean, we're seeing it all over, and I'm sharing you some of these rebates. Oh, $2,000 off, $2,500 off, 0% for 72 months. But guess what? Those 0% means you're paying full sticker. Or if you're getting that $2,500 off, a lot of those times you can't combine rebates or kickbacks. And so what's $2,000 off on some of these EVs that are worth 60 grand? What's $2,000 off? That's $12 a month on your loan payments for the next 6 years? That's not much. That's hardly in negotiations. But they make it seem and they plump it up like they're doing you a big favor. Anyway, I'd like to hear your thoughts down below. What's your overall take? There are deals to be had, and I will continue to share some of those great deals out there because there are deals. But just know that what I just told you is just the inside scoop. That's probably the 90 percentile of the industry, that they find their little tricks and ways to maximize their profits and minimize how much deal that they give you, the customer. There are deals out there. I'll share those. But anyway, I'd like to hear your thoughts down below. And again, as always, have a wonderful day, everybody. Bye-bye.